Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel, and so it's come around again, the absolute nonsense about being a true fan. I've always said this is nonsense, and I'm not just talking about tourists here, I'm just talking about the argument in particular. I don't think anyone can say that someone's not a true fan unless that person is wishing to change or destroy parts of the hobby for their own valuation. And that's it. So, but when it comes to being argued that you're not a true fan, people tend to try and give you litmus tests to prove that you, in fact, are a true fan of the hobby. And most of these litmus tests are basically selfish and demeaning selfish for the person making the test and demeaning for the person taking the test. And so the thing is, wargaming, as I've said so many times, is a massive hobby. It is incredibly huge. It is a hobby that, well, not financially as good as video games, but probably on scope and size and variation, I would say would pretty much outdo what video games easily. Again, not financially speaking here. So, the thing about wargaming is, like I said, it's vast, and it doesn't really matter how much you put into it, as long as you're enjoying what you're putting into it. See, here's the thing. This sort of litmus test of being a true fan is usually about number and size. I am a massive fan. It is my favourite game. It's my favourite setting. It's my favourite lore. It's Wild West Exodus. I have quite a huge Warrior Nation army. I'm starting my Watchers army. And then I will go back to my Union army, which is pretty sizable on its own. And then I might add some outlaws or maybe just some lawmen to go with the Union. So, the thing is, my Wild West Exodus model collection is quite small compared to my 40k collection. How my Wild West Exodus collection is so much smaller than my 40k collection that I have an army that's bigger than all of my Wild West Exodus put together. And that's not hyperbole, that is literally the truth, and that's not a crusade army of mashing armies together. That's a single force. And that's Blood Angels, by the way, in case you're wondering. Though this litmus test would say that I'm a bigger fan of 40k than I am of Wild West Exodus, which is absolutely untrue. Being a fan of something is completely subjective to the person. It's how much love and enjoyment they put into certain aspects of the hobby. It doesn't have to always be the amount you collect. I mean, there's financial barriers for some people. There's other barriers, like they might not like building, they might not like painting, they might not like other parts of the hobby. But just judging it on one certain part of the hobby, so to make them a true fan, you have to participate in this certain point, makes it complete nonsense in my opinion. So when it comes to wargaming, I would say you need miniatures to be a fan of wargaming, because that's the thing. Well, that's the problem is with this, is that Warhammer, and Games Workshop in particular, says that Warhammer 40k is the hobby. And if Warhammer 40k is the hobby, that means we have to include everything about Warhammer 40k to be part of the hobby. I'm not saying you have to participate in every aspect. I'm just saying that we have to include everything that comes under the Warhammer 40k banner to be part of the hobby. And this includes many novels. There's over 50 novels for Warhammer 40k. I know they have over 50 because I have I have over 50. I think I've got about 75 novels just on 40k alone. To be fair, most of them are in omnibuses, but anyway, so when people say someone's not a true 40k fan or not really into the 40k hobby because they don't have a painted or built miniature, and by the way, the litmus test would say you could have 100 books all about 40k and you'd be less of a fan than one person who has one miniature they got for free, by the way. This is the litmus test. And it's silly. That just example alone shows how absolutely silly the argument of someone demanding to show models that to be a true fan. See, here's the thing. I don't like bullies. I really do not. And when I see people saying, I want to see your miniatures. I want you to prove that you're a true fan of the hobby or you're really into the hobby. You must show me the models that you make, that so I can say that you are actually true to Warhammer 40k. My answer will always be no. Actually, my answer would be no with 7 letters and a space between the 4th and the 5th one. And it rhymes with duck off. And that would be my response. I don't care. And I really don't. I don't care if someone says, oh, you're not a true fan because you're not showing me your miniatures. It's like, I'm not showing you my miniatures, not because I'm not a true fan. I'm not showing you my miniatures because you're making a demand for them. You're demanding me to see my miniatures. That is why I'm not showing them. It's got nothing to do with my love of the hobby. So, when we talk about Warhammer 40k as a hobby, which I definitely disagree with, it's part of the wargaming hobby, we have to talk about the lore and the amount in it, and the love, and of course the miniatures, and the love you put in. See, Warhammer 40k is actually a vast hobby on its own. It's got hundreds of books, novels alone. It has hundreds of different miniatures, codices, Warhammer army books, etc, etc. It's got so much into it that by a test of a true fan, you must be able to read all the books, must read all the rules, all the codices, all the Warhammer army books. Oh, they're called battle tomes, aren't they, for Age of Sigmar? And so, and paint the models. But that's the thing. That's one of the biggest issues, because if you're like me, I'm really picky. I am incredibly picky on what I spend my money on. And whereas I will not read a Necron book because it doesn't interest me. I won't read Dark Eldar books. Don't interest me. I won't collect a Orc army, though the Orcs do interest me. The idea of a Horde army doesn't interest me. Same with Tyranids, Imperial Guard. Well, Imperial Guard I can do a tank army, which is cool. And so I have to be picky. I'm being picky. I know what I like and I like it a lot. So I'm not going to go out of my way to prove I'm a true fan by, building an army or doing something that I don't enjoy. And this goes for people who are just into the lore, who don't enjoy building or painting. This goes for you as well. You're still part of a hobby if you are really into the lore and the setting. You aren't not a true hobbyist for Warhammer 40k because you don't build and paint the miniatures. You can be collecting the novels. Collecting the novels is in itself a hobby, and it's part of the Warhammer 40k hobby because that's what you're interested in. And you might not even just want to read all the books. I mean, I sure as hell don't. I don't want to read books on Orcs. I don't want to read books on Necrons. I want to read books on the Eldari. I want to read books on the Space Marines. I want to read... Those are the things that interest me. The Knights, the Imperial Knights, those interest me. I'm not going to go out of my way to buy a book I don't think I'll enjoy. It might be a good book, but it doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy it. It doesn't mean anything. And to make demands on people to do part of a hobby that they may not enjoy or not even do, such as building or painting miniatures to show off that they are in fact a true fan, is absolutely demeaning to the person. And it devalues them as a person and as a fan. Again, if you're saying to someone, oh, you're not a true fan of Warhammer 40k because you don't paint miniatures, and yet you have every single novel ever written and you've read them all countless times, why does that make someone less of a fan than someone who builds less of a hobbyist in Warhammer 40k than someone who builds and paints models? It doesn't. The hobby is Warhammer 40k. The hobby includes the novels and the books. You do not have to paint a single model or play a single game to be part of the Warhammer 40k hobby. Collecting the books is a hobby. I can see why people do it. Why people buy these first edition signed books. That's their hobby. They're collecting that. That's a hobby in itself, and it's part of Warhammer 40k, so it's part of the Warhammer 40k hobby. Anyway, I ranted on and off. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you like it. I'll see you all in the next one, and I hope you have a good day. If you wish to save money on... Actually, I think they actually have some books there. I know they have the Wild West Exodus books, which are well worth picking up. Click on Wayland Games down below. You get up to 20% off your wargaming and some books, and free delivery after £20. There's Forbidden Planet for comics, DVDs, mangas, etc. And there's my merchandise, t-shirts, cups, my comic. If you want to see Little Red Riding Hood go absolutely ham on some Lovecraftian cyborg werewolves. and also there's another one which is a horror anthology as well. There's Skyforge, never forget Skyforge, and finally, there is Patreon, because business. Bye bye.